The message arrived on a Tuesday, just an ordinary Tuesday at the United Earth Space Command headquarters in Geneva. But that Tuesday changed everything. Captain John Carter stared at the screen, reading the alien text that somehow translated perfectly into English. He rubbed his tired eyes and read it again. Greetings, people of Earth. The Galactic Council acknowledges your species' advancement to Level 3 technology. We invite formal contact and evaluation. Coordinates follow. After decades of searching the stars and sending signals into the void, someone had finally answered. Humanity was not alone. Within hours, the highest levels of Earth's government gathered. They argued about what to do, but in the end, curiosity won. They would answer the call. The EA's determination, Earth's newest and fastest ship, was prepared for the journey. Captain Carter would command it, carrying Earth's hopes to the stars. This is either the greatest moment in human history or the beginning of the end, said Susan Miller as she packed her bags. As Earth's top diplomat, she had dealt with countless human conflicts, but aliens were something new entirely. Alan Wright, the ship's chief scientist, couldn't stop smiling. Think of what we'll learn. Their technology must be centuries beyond ours. Together with a crew of 50 specialists, they departed Earth 3 weeks later. The journey to the provided coordinates took nearly a month, even with the newest drive technology. When they arrived, the sight took their breath away. A massive space station floated before them, shaped like a wheel with spokes running to a central hub. Ships of various shapes and sizes moved around it like bees around a hive. Ease determination, you are cleared to dock at Bay 94, came a voice over the communication system. It spoke perfect English with only a slight accent that made some words sound musical. As they docked, Susan straightened her uniform. Remember, we represent all of humanity now. Let's make a good first impression. The airlock opened, and the humans had their first look at aliens. 3 different species stood waiting for them. To the left was a tall, thin being with blue skin and 4 arms. In the middle stood a creature that looked almost like a large cat walking on 2 legs, and on the right was what appeared to be a floating ball of purple gas contained within a transparent suit. "Welcome to Concordia Station," said the blue being. "I am High Chancellor Sarvex of the Galactic Council. We have been watching your world for some time." Susan stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we thank you for this invitation. We come in peace and friendship." Sarvex made a gesture that might have been a smile. Of course, all species say that at first. "Come, you will be shown to your quarters, and tomorrow your evaluation begins." "Evaluation?" John asked. "Yes. All new species must be classified within our hierarchy. It determines your rights, territories, and responsibilities within Council space." As they followed their guides through the station, the humans noticed something strange. Many of the aliens seemed to move with difficulty in the station's gravity. Some wore mechanical aids to help them walk. "The gravity here is set to Council standard," explained their guide, a small green being named Mictol. "Many find it uncomfortable, but it is necessary for fairness." Alan checked his instruments. "This is only about 85% of Earth's gravity." The humans exchanged glances. If this was standard, what did that mean about the aliens themselves? Later, in their private quarters, the human delegation gathered. "Did you notice how they all seemed?" "Fragile?" Susan asked. John nodded. "And they seemed surprised when we walked off the ship without any assistance devices." "The Council has 27 member species," Alan said, reading from the information they'd been given. "Each evolved on different worlds with different conditions." Susan looked out the viewport at the stars. "We might be stronger than we thought. I wonder if that's good or bad." Little did they know, on the other side of the station, the Council was having an emergency meeting about these strange new humans who moved too quickly, seemed too strong, and asked too many questions. The tests would begin tomorrow, and everyone had much to learn. The tests began early the next morning. The human delegation was split into groups based on their skills. Scientists went with scientists, soldiers with soldiers, and diplomats with diplomats. Lieutenant Diane Powell followed a group of aliens into a large empty room. The walls were white, and the floor was padded. 5 other aliens from different species stood in a line. "This is a standard physical assessment," said Administrator Veltor, a gray-skinned alien with large black eyes. "We will test strength, speed, and endurance." Diane nodded. At 6 feet tall with years of military training, she was confident in her abilities. But she was here to represent Earth, not to show off. First test: lift the weight to demonstrate maximum strength. Veltor pointed to a metal bar with round weights on each end. One by one, the aliens stepped forward. They struggled to lift weights that looked light to Diane. When her turn came, she easily lifted the heaviest weight they had. Veltor's eyes widened. "Perhaps there is a misunderstanding. This is maximum weight for level 3 species." Diane shrugged. "Would you like me to stop?" "No, please continue. We will note this anomaly." In another room, Dr. Kevin Reese sat before a strange device. It projected 3-dimensional shapes that moved and changed color. "This puzzle tests problem-solving abilities," explained his guide. "The record for a new species is 14 minutes. Kevin studied the shapes. He noticed patterns in the movements and colors. After 7 minutes, he reached out and rearranged the shapes into a perfect sphere. The aliens watching him fell silent. One of them whispered something to another. "Is something wrong?" Kevin asked. "No," said the guide. "But that puzzle has stumped our scientists for decades. It was considered unsolvable." Meanwhile, Susan Miller and the diplomatic team faced their own challenges. They were presented with scenario after scenario, each one designed to test their ethics and decision-making. "Your colony is running out of food. Another species offers help, but wants mining rights on your moon. Do you accept?" asked a blue-skinned alien. "That depends," Susan replied. "Are the mining operations harmful to our environment? Can we negotiate terms that benefit both sides?" The aliens looked at each other. Most species simply say yes or no. Humans prefer to find solutions where everyone wins, Susan explained. Throughout the day, similar scenes played out. Humans consistently performed better than expected. They were stronger, thought differently, and adapted quickly to new situations. By evening, when the delegation gathered again in their quarters, everyone had stories to tell. "They seemed shocked when I climbed that wall," John said. "Apparently most species can't handle heights well." Alan nodded. "I noticed they keep their ships cooler than we do. And they're amazed we can function in different temperatures and oxygen levels." "Something strange is happening," Susan said. "I overheard 2 council members talking. They used a word I didn't recognize, but it translated roughly as superior species classification." Frank Bennett, a junior diplomat, spoke up. "I heard that too." And they didn't sound happy about it. Outside their quarters, the council held an emergency meeting. Screens showed data from the day's tests. "These results are troubling," said a lizard-like alien. "Humans are stronger than Cenovians, more adaptable than Morkans, and nearly as intelligent as Volusians." High Chancellor Xarvex looked concerned. "Continue the tests. We must be certain before we classify them." "And if they are what we fear?" asked Veltor. "Then we must decide what to do about Earth," replied Xarvex. "The last superior species nearly destroyed us all. We cannot allow that to happen again." As the council argued deep into the night, the humans slept, unaware that their performance had set in motion events that would change the galaxy forever. The real test was just beginning. For 2 more weeks, the tests continued. With each passing day, the council members grew more nervous while the humans grew more confident. On the final day, all 27 council species gathered in the great circular chamber. The human delegation stood in the center, waiting. The room buzzed with whispers in dozens of alien languages. High Chancellor Xarvex raised all 4 of his blue arms, and silence fell. After careful evaluation, The Council has reached a decision regarding the classification of species Earth, known as humans. Susan Miller felt her heart race. This classification would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. Zarvex continued, his voice echoing in the chamber. Based on physical abilities, mental capacity, adaptability, and technological potential, we hereby classify humans as... He paused, his eyes briefly closing. A superior species. Gasps filled the room. Several delegates stood up in protest. Order, Zarvex shouted. The data is clear. Only once in 12,000 years has the Council granted this status. Today marks the second time. The human delegation looked at each other in confusion. John Carter leaned toward Susan. Is this good? He whispered. Before she could answer, Zarvex continued. Superior species status grants Earth expanded territory rights, access to advanced technology, and a permanent seat on the High Council. The humans smiled. This sounded wonderful. However, Zarvex added, this status also carries restrictions. Superior species must limit their military growth and accept Council observers on all colonies. These measures ensure galactic stability. Susan frowned. The restrictions sounded like chains disguised as honors. After the announcement, a celebration was held. Aliens from various worlds approached the humans, offering congratulations that somehow felt hollow. Frank Bennett, the junior diplomat, moved through the crowd, listening. His job was to gather information, and today people were talking freely after drinking exotic beverages. Near a refreshment table, he overheard two reptilian aliens speaking. This is madness, one said. Humans are barely out of their gravity well, and we're giving them superior status. The tests were clear, replied the other. They're too dangerous to classify lower. Remember the protocols. Yes, I know. Keep your friends close and your potential destroyers closer. Frank moved away, troubled by what he'd heard. On the other side of the room, Susan was speaking with a small pink alien who introduced herself as Ambassador Prill. Your species should be proud, Prill said, her large eyes blinking rapidly. Superior status is quite the achievement. We are honored, Susan replied, though I'm curious why it seems to upset some delegates. Prill's pink skin darkened. The last superior species, the Krell, nearly destroyed the Council 5,000 years ago. Their technology advanced too quickly, and they became unstable. What happened to them? Susan asked. Prill looked away. They encountered unfortunate circumstances, a tragic loss to the galaxy. Later that night, the human delegation gathered in their quarters. I don't trust this classification, John said. It feels like a collar disguised as a crown. Ellen nodded. They're scared of us. Did you see how they reacted when Zarvex made the announcement? Frank, what did you learn? Susan asked. Frank shared what he had overheard. I think they have protocols for dealing with species they consider threats. This superior status might be part of that. So what do we do? Asked Diane Powell. Susan looked out at the stars. We accept their honor, learn everything we can, and stay alert. Something tells me this celebration won't last long. Meanwhile, in a secret chamber deep within Concordia Station, 7 council members met. Phase 1 is complete, said Veltor. The humans are classified and contained. How long until Phase 2? Asked a shadowy figure. We need time to position our forces, replied another. 1 month, perhaps 2. And Earth will never see it coming, Veltor said with what passed for a smile. They're too busy celebrating their own doom. The secret coalition against Earth had begun its work. 6 months passed since the Council's declaration. Earth now had 5 new colonies on planets given to them by the Council. Human ships traveled through space using improved engines based on Council technology. On the surface, everything seemed wonderful. Kelly Barnes wiped sweat from her forehead as she studied the engine before her. As Earth's top engineer, she had been sent to the colony on Proxima B to improve their power systems. This design is so inefficient, she muttered to herself. If we just reroute the plasma flow here and adjust the containment field. Within weeks, Kelly had redesigned the Council's standard warp drive. Her changes made the engines 3 times more powerful while using less fuel. When she submitted her improvements to the Council, the response was not what she expected. "Your modifications are unauthorized," said the Council representative, a tall insect-like being. "All technology changes must be approved before implementation." "But it works better," Kelly argued. "Don't you want more efficient engines?" The representative's antennae twitched. "The Council will review your submission. Until then, return to standard designs." 2 days later, Council inspectors arrived and took all of Kelly's work. They said it was for review, but she never heard about it again. Similar scenes played out across human colonies. Whenever humans improved Council technology or developed something new, the Council quickly stepped in to review it. On Earth, Captain Eric Simmons commanded the Defense Fleet. As part of the Superior Species Agreement, Council observers now lived on Earth and all human colonies. They claimed to be there for cultural exchange, but Eric didn't trust them. "They're watching everything we do," he told Admiral Rodriguez during a secure meeting. "Every time we build a new ship, they want to inspect it." "The Council seems nervous," the Admiral replied. "Have you seen the latest reports?" Eric nodded. Council ships have been moving into positions around human-controlled space. They called it a training exercise, but the pattern looked more like a blockade. "I've been watching them too," Eric said, "and I found something strange." He showed the Admiral images of a Council ship near the Jupiter colony. "They're scanning our defenses and communication systems." "That's not a friendly action," the Admiral said with a frown. "There's more," Eric continued. 3 of our supply ships to the outer colonies disappeared last month. The Council said it was navigation errors, but I found debris that shows weapons fire." The Admiral's face darkened. "Keep this quiet for now. Gather more evidence. We need to be sure before we confront them." Meanwhile, on Concordia Station, the Council held another emergency meeting. This time, humans were not invited. "The humans are advancing too quickly," said Krelvor, leader of the Draxian delegation. "Their engineer Barnes created improvements to our drives that took us centuries to develop." Zarvex nodded. "The containment protocol is failing. They expand and adapt faster than we can monitor." "The Tellurians were the same before we dealt with them," said another delegate. "As were the Krell." "Then we proceed to Phase 2, asked Veltor. "Yes," said Zarvex. "Begin the quarantine preparations. When the fleet is in position, we will revoke their status and contain the threat." "What about their home world?" someone asked. "Earth will be isolated until they accept their proper place," Zarvex answered. "If they resist, we may need more permanent solutions." As the Council plotted, they didn't notice Frank Bennett standing in the shadows of an air vent. After months on the station, he had learned to move unseen through the maintenance tunnels. His face pale, Frank slipped away to find Susan Miller. Humans were in danger, and Earth needed to be warned. The Council had declared humans superior. Now, they were about to show just how much they regretted that decision. Frank Bennett moved quickly through the shadows of Concordia Station. His heart beat fast as he made his way to Susan Miller's quarters. What he had heard in the Council meeting room changed everything. He knocked on Susan's door 3 times, then twice more, their secret signal for urgent news. Susan opened the door, her face serious. "What did you find?" "They're moving against us," Frank said, stepping inside. "The Council is preparing to revoke our status and quarantine Earth." Susan's face went pale. "Are you certain?" "I heard Zarvex himself. They called it Phase 2 of some protocol. They've done this before to other species." Susan rushed to her communication terminal. "We need to warn Earth immediately." But when she tried to send a message, the screen flashed red. "Access denied. They've cut our communications," she said. "We need to find another way." The next morning, The human delegation was summoned to the council chamber. The friendly atmosphere of 6 months ago was gone. Now armed guards stood at every entrance, and the faces of the council members were cold. High Chancellor Tarvex didn't waste time on greetings. The Galactic Council has reviewed the superior species classification of humans. Due to unforeseen compatibility issues, this status is hereby revoked. John Carter stepped forward. On what grounds? We'd followed all agreements. Your kind advances too quickly, said Veltor. You modify our technology without permission. You build weapons and ships beyond approved designs. Those were improvements, not violations, Susan argued. Hazarvex raised his hand for silence. The Council's decision is final. Earth will return to Level 3 status with restricted travel rights. All colonies must accept full Council control. And if we refuse? John asked. Then Earth will be quarantined until compliance is achieved. Xarvex replied. For the safety of all galactic citizens. Susan recognized the threat behind his words. This is about control, not safety. You're afraid of us. Murmurs spread through the chamber at her boldness. Guards, Xarvex ordered, escort the human delegation to secure quarters. They will remain there until transport to Earth is arranged. As guards surrounded them, Susan noticed Laura Garcia, their communications officer, slip away during the confusion. Laura had been quiet throughout their time on the station, but Susan had seen her sharp mind at work. In their new quarters, which were clearly prison cells despite the comfortable furniture, the human delegation gathered. They planned this from the beginning, Alan said. The superior classification was just a way to watch us closely. And to identify our strengths and weaknesses, added John. Susan looked around the room, noticing the cameras in every corner. We need to assume everything we say is being monitored. Meanwhile, Laura Garcia had escaped notice in the chaos. As the lowest-ranking member of the delegation, many council members didn't even recognize her. She made her way to the communications center, where she had spent months learning the systems. The technician on duty, a friendly Martian named Zip, smiled at her. Laura, I didn't expect to see you today. Just checking some final reports before we leave, she said casually. The council gave us new orders. While chatting with Zip, Laura connected a small device to the console, a transmitter she had built in secret. It would send a single, powerful burst message to Earth. As Zip turned away, Laura quickly typed, Betrayal. Council or EVOK he stay to is preparing military action against Earth. Delegation TTAYAD. Warn defensive fleet. She pressed send just as alarms began to sound throughout the station. What's happening? Zip asked, confused. I think they found out I'm not supposed to be here, Laura said, backing toward the door. Guards burst in, weapons ready. Laura raised her hands, but she was smiling. The message was already racing toward Earth at faster than light speed. On Earth, the defense fleet received the warning just as council ships began moving into position around the solar system. The betrayal was complete. The war was about to begin. On Earth, Admiral Rodriguez stood in the control center of the Defense Fleet headquarters. Screens showed council ships moving into position around every human colony and Earth itself. All ships report ready, Admiral, said his second-in-command. Rodriguez nodded. Send the message to all colonies. Operation Scattered Stars begins now. Across human space, ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons suddenly powered up. These weren't the standard vessels the Council knew about. These were ships built in secret, using human improvements on Council technology. The Council expected humans to fight like they did, with direct attacks and formal battle lines. They didn't understand how humans had survived on Earth for thousands of years. On the colony world New Eden, Council forces landed expecting to take control of the main settlement. Instead, they found empty buildings. The colonists had vanished into the forests and mountains, taking their equipment with them. Captain Eric Simmons led a small team of ships on a daring raid against a Council supply depot. His vessels were smaller and less powerful than Council warships, but they were faster and more maneuverable. "Remember, hit and run," he told his pilots. "Don't try to win a direct fight." His ships darted in, fired at specific targets, and disappeared before the larger Council vessels could respond. Within minutes, the depot's defenses were down, and the human ships were gone with stolen supplies and weapons. Similar scenes played out across human space. The Council forces found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of war as they understood them. On Earth, Dr. Nathan Ross worked day and night in a secret underground lab. For months, he had studied Council communication systems, looking for weaknesses. Their ships communicate using quantum-paired particles, he explained to the military officers watching his work. They think it's impossible to interrupt or listen in. "Is it?" asked one officer. Nathan smiled. "Nothing is impossible, just difficult." He activated his device. Across the solar system, Council ships suddenly lost contact with each other. Their screens showed only static, and their carefully coordinated attack fell into confusion. Meanwhile, on Concordia Station, the human delegation remained under guard. But they weren't sitting idle. Major Paul Wilson had been quiet throughout their diplomatic mission. Most Council members thought he was just security for the diplomats. They didn't know he was actually a Special Forces commander with years of experience in rescue operations. "The air vents are large enough for us to move through," he told the others in whispers while running water to mask their conversation. "I've mapped most of the station during our time here." "How do we get past the guards?" John asked. "We wait for the right moment," Paul replied. "And I think it's coming soon." That moment came 3 days later. Alarms blared throughout the station as reports came in of human resistance across Council space. "Now," Paul said, opening the hidden panel in the wall he had prepared weeks earlier. One by one, the humans slipped into the maintenance tunnels of the station. Paul led them through the dark passages, avoiding patrols and security cameras. "Where are we going?" Susan asked. "To find proof," Paul answered. Frank heard them talk about other species they've contained. If we can find those records, we can show the galaxy what the Council really does. They reached a secure data center. While Paul kept watch, Alan and Susan used access codes they had secretly gathered over months to break into the system. What they found horrified them. "The Tellurians weren't extinct," Susan whispered, reading the files. "The Council quarantined their planet, then bombarded it when they resisted. And they weren't the only ones," Alan added, downloading data to a portable device. "The Krell, the Novan, 3 other species classified as superior and then eliminated." Susan's face hardened. "We need to get this information out. The other species need to know what the Council does to anyone who grows too strong." As they gathered the evidence, human forces across the galaxy continued their resistance. Their battle cry, sent from ship to ship and colony to colony, was simple: "They'll regret this." And slowly, the Council was beginning to realize just how true those words would be. 2 weeks into the conflict, the Council was growing frustrated. Their military forces, though larger and more powerful, couldn't seem to pin down the humans. Every time they thought they had an advantage, the humans would change tactics. "This is not how war is conducted," complained Krelvor of the Draxians during an emergency council meeting. "They refuse to meet our fleets in proper battle. They fight like vermin," another delegate added, "hiding, then striking when we least expect it." High Chancellor Xarvex looked tired. The war was not going as planned. Increase patrols around major colonies. Find their hidden bases. We must show strength. On the human colony World Harmony, Amy Rodriguez watched Council ships patrol the skies. As the colony administrator, she had refused to surrender when Council forces arrived. Instead, she had other plans. A small alien with 6 legs scurried into her hidden bunker. It belonged to a species called the Volari, considered minor by the Council, and given few rights. The others have agreed to meet, the Valeri said in its clicking language, which Amy had learned over the past year. Amy nodded. Thank you, Kix. Lead the way. They traveled through underground tunnels to a large cave. Inside waited representatives from 5 different minor species who lived on the edges of Council space. We have all suffered under Council rule, Amy said to the gathered aliens. They keep advanced technology from us. They limit our growth. They tell us where we can live and how we can develop. A furry being called Arindi stepped forward. Why should we help humans? The Council says you are dangerous. We are dangerous to those who threaten us, Amy replied. But we want allies, not servants. Look at what we offer. She showed them plans for improved habitats designed for each species' needs, medical technology the Council had withheld, and defense systems to protect their worlds. The Council keeps you weak to keep you controlled, Amy said. We offer partnership. By the end of the meeting, all 5 species had agreed to join the human resistance. Similar alliances formed on other worlds. The minor species, long ignored by the Council, found humans willing to treat them as equals. Meanwhile, deep in unexplored space, Captain Ryan Nelson led a mission few thought possible. Intelligence had located a Council shipyard where a new class of dreadnought was being built. This is crazy, his pilot said as their ship drifted silently toward the massive Council vessel. Even if we get aboard, how do we take control? One step at a time, Ryan replied. The Council thinks like machines. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. They don't expect us to jump to Step 10. Using cloaking technology developed by combining human ingenuity with Council science, Ryan's team boarded the dreadnought. While Council security looked for a frontal assault, the humans snuck through maintenance shafts and unused corridors. Within hours, they had reached the bridge. The Council officers surrendered quickly, not trained for close combat against determined humans. Send the signal, Ryan ordered once they had control. Across Council space, communication systems were flooded with a simple message. Attention all Council species. This is Captain Ryan Nelson of Earth. The Council has lied to you. The message continued, showing evidence Susan and Alan had found about the Council's containment of other advanced species. They fear any species that might grow stronger than them, Ryan's message explained. Today, they target humans. Tomorrow, it could be your species. The message ended with an offer of alliance against Council rule. On Concordia Station, Tarvex watched his carefully built coalition crumble as dozens of species demanded answers. Some Council ships even refused to fire on human vessels after seeing the evidence. How are they doing this? He asked Veltor. We have superior numbers, superior weapons. But they have something we don't. Veltor replied quietly. They adapt. They improvise. They never give up. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council faced an enemy they couldn't defeat through conventional means. The humans weren't just fighting. They were changing the rules of the game itself. 3 months after the Council betrayed humanity, the galaxy looked very different. Council ships no longer surrounded Earth. Instead, a new fleet patrolled there, vessels from a dozen different species working together. On Concordia Station, representatives from 35 species gathered in the Great Chamber where the Council once ruled. The old Council members sat to one side, no longer in the center seats of power. Susan Miller stood at the speaker's platform. Once a diplomat, she had become the leader of Earth's unified government during the crisis. For too long, the galaxy lived under a system that divided us into superior and inferior species, she said. That system ends today. Behind her stood allies from many worlds. Some had been classified as minor by the old Council. Others had been powerful members who chose to side with Earth after learning the truth. And standing in the shadows were representatives of the Tellurians, a species thought extinct, but actually hiding in deep space after escaping the Council's attempted genocide. The new Galactic Charter recognizes all intelligent species as equals. Susan continued. No more classifications. No more restrictions on technology or territory based on your biology or home world. Former High Chancellor Tarvex watched from his seat, his blue skin pale with defeat. He had underestimated humans at every turn. When faced with overwhelming force, humans hadn't surrendered. They'd found new ways to fight. When cut off from allies, they'd made new ones. When outgunned, they'd used creativity instead of brute force. The vote to accept the new charter was nearly unanimous. Only 7 species, those who had benefited most from the old system, refused to join. They announced they would form their own alliance apart from the new galactic community. Let them go, John Carter said to Susan after the vote. They'll either change their minds eventually or become irrelevant. After the ceremony, Alan Wright took his place as Earth's representative on the new council. Unlike the old system, where power was concentrated in a few hands, this council would rotate leadership and require consensus on major decisions. We made it, Susan said as she and her team prepared to return to Earth. We did more than survive, Alan replied. We changed everything. 20 years later, a class of young beings from various species sat in a classroom at the new Galactic Academy on Concordia. The teacher, an elderly human woman with white hair and a straight back, pointed to a holographic display showing scenes from what was now called the Liberation War. And that's how the old council system fell, Lieutenant Diane Powell said to her students. Can anyone tell me the most important lesson from this history? A young Draxian raised his hand. That humans are the strongest species. Diane shook her head. No, the lesson is that no species is inherently superior to others. Each has different strengths and weaknesses. The old council failed because they tried to rank and control species instead of working with them as equals. But humans won the war. A Volari student clicked. We didn't win alone, Diane corrected. We survived the council's betrayal because we worked with others and adapted quickly, and many species won their freedom because they chose to stand with us. She looked out at her class, young beings whose parents had once been enemies, but now sent their children to learn together. The final lesson is simple, she said. Never underestimate any species, especially one you've just called superior. As the students filed out after class, Diane looked at the stars through the window. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts and problems to solve. But for the first time in thousands of years, it was truly free. In the end, the council had declared humans superior and immediately regretted it. But their biggest mistake wasn't in giving humans that status. It was in believing that any species could be ranked as better or worse than another in the first place.